I was remiss in not thanking all the Army people who came today and the wonderful OCPs. It looks great. Thanks, Larry. It's now my honor to introduce our first speaker. She really needs no introduction, but that doesn't mean we're not going to do one anyway. She has more than 35 years of experience in a variety of senior roles, including as a member of the U.S. House of Representatives and president of the South Dakota School of Mines and Technology. She's an Air Force Academy graduate, a Rhodes Scholar, and from 1982 to 1989, she was an officer in our Air Force. Ladies and gentlemen, with no further ado, please let me introduce Heather Wilson, the Secretary of the Air Force.
We must see the world as it is.
A world that has returned to an era of great power competition.
And new threats are emerging, to which our generation must respond.
We have, from this moment forward, to get ready.
It takes all of us to get that combat power ready and able to fight. A fist is nothing without the weight of the body behind it. The Air Force we need should have about 25% more operational squadrons than the Air Force we have. We must prepare.
America's military has no preordained right to victory on the battlefield. Victory must be planned for and eventually won in the unforgiving crucible of combat.
We are fielding America's Air Force faster and smarter. Technology will change the character of war.
Our goal is to connect across the domains, share information at the speed of light, and manage the volume of data so we can pull what we need, when we need it, and create a common operational picture.
Freedom is worth protecting. You know that because you made a choice to do something for a purpose, to be airman.
Fight's on.
I was backstage. I couldn't tell you guys were all standing. Sit down. This is Orlando. Relax. Whit, thank you for the introduction. And thank you also to Larry Spencer for your leadership and for everything you've done for our Air Force. It's been wonderful to get to know you and to work with you. It's also wonderful to welcome Orville Wright, the new AFA president, starting tomorrow. With a name like that, you're a shoo-in for this organization. I also wanted to thank my wingmen, the Chief of Staff, Dave Goldfein, and his wife, Dawn. I understand Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force, Khalith Wright, and his wife, Tanya, I guess Chief Wright is either sleeping in today or getting tased somewhere, so he's not here yet, but he is also a wonderful partner in this effort. Chief, I am a better secretary because of you, and I couldn't ask for a better partner in this effort. Thank you. It's also great to see all of you, and the fact that you're here speaks to who you are as professionals in the profession of arms. Not to mention your desire to be in Florida in February. You know, the idea of strategic air power was born about 100 years ago. It was led by thinkers and doers, men like Gilio Duhay and Hugh Trenchard and Billy Mitchell, men who foresaw the value of striking strategic targets behind enemy lines and argued passionately for that vision of the future of warfare. Mitchell and Duhay were so confrontational in their approach that it cost them their careers. But the theory and its application endured and was proven correct in World War II, leading to the establishment of a separate Air Force. The way we fought with air power evolved quickly, with enormous leaps forward in innovation, from propellers to jets to rockets. The ability to attack at night, electronic jamming, communication satellites, precision-guided munitions, composite materials, stealth, and remotely piloted aircraft and spaceplanes. The list goes on because innovation is one of the hallmarks of our service. It's in our DNA. In 1944, General Hap Arnold summed it up perfectly. He said, "The future of US national security depends on our military supremacy, and our military supremacy in the long term depends on our ability to rapidly innovate and to be at the cutting edge of science." As soon as the Air Force was established, we began pushing the limits of the possible. But today, our technological dominance is at risk. For the first time in 30 years, Russia has resumed fighter patrols over the North Pole, and they have built a ring of anti-aircraft missiles from Syria to the Eastern Arctic Circle. They are threatening US air power. The Chinese Air Force, Navy, and missile units just finished a month of unannounced live fire exercises in the South China Sea, and they are pushing into the Pacific. We have returned to an era of great power competition. Last year, Congress appointed an independent National Defense Strategy Commission to red team the new National Defense Strategy published by Secretary Mattis over a year ago. It is intended to look at this new circumstance of great power competition. And that independent commission concluded this: regardless of where the next conflict occurs or which adversary it features, the Air Force will be at the forefront. The Air Force will be at the forefront. So job one in executing this national defense strategy is restoring the readiness of the force that had been allowed to erode and diminish over time. Readiness, first and foremost, is about people. In the last 2 years, we have added almost 9,000 active duty airmen to our end strength, and we are putting them in the squadrons where they matter the most: in maintenance, in cyber, in logistics. We were 4,000 active duty maintainers short 2 years ago, 4,000 vacancies in the flight lines and the shops. As of December, we have closed that gap to zero. Now we've got to give those young airmen the experience to become craftsmen at their work. In 2016, the Wisconsin Air National Guard up at Truax Field had only a quarter of their authorized active duty maintainers. And that shortage meant that our F-16 pilots weren't getting the flying time they needed to train. When the jets were broke, there weren't enough people to fix them. Today, that squadron at Truax is 103% manned with active duty maintainers, allowing for the development and the seasoning of our pilots to be ready to fight. Last year, we produced more than 1,200 new pilots, 146 more than originally expected, and our Pilot Training Next program is using virtual reality and more simulators to train pilots better and faster. We are more ready for major combat operations today than we were 2 years ago. And more than 90% of our pacing squadrons, those squadrons that are required either for a China or a Russia fight, are ready to fight tonight with their lead force packages. Now, to be sure, we've got a heck of a lot more work to do. The Chief and I and the leaders of this team, civilian and military, will continue to work to get the people and the training and the equipment and the spare parts so that if called upon, you can fight and win and come home again. But it's not just what we are doing to improve readiness, it's what we're trying to stop doing, including wasting time on stupid stuff. You know, we're continuing to try to put support into squadrons, and the Chief is absolutely passionate on revitalizing the life in the squadron, the beating heart of our Air Force. And I would ask each of you who are commanders, who are first shirts, to resist additional duties that don't improve our readiness to fight. 17 months ago, General Goldfein and I told the Air Staff to review Air Force instructions and to rescind the ones that are out of date or out of touch. We have rescinded 302 Air Force instructions as of today over the last 17 months. That's the pile on the left, by the way. This is my living PowerPoint slide inside my office in the Pentagon so that everybody who walks in knows we're serious about getting rid of these things. We heard loud and clear, but that pile is the rescinded ones on the left. The rewritten ones are on the right, and there's kind of a battle going on there. You know, we also heard loud and clear your complaints about McT and the time-consuming self-assessment communicators. I mean, who named that anyway? To date, the Inspector General has cut in half the headquarters Air Force level requirements, and the MAJCOMs have reduced their reporting requirements by 22%, with more to come. We know that these things are annoying and time-consuming, but what we're trying to do here has a much larger purpose. In a high-end conflict, you will not be able to rely upon exquisite command and control, to be told what to do. You won't be able to find out, even sometimes, where everybody else is on the battlefield. You're going to have to act on mission orders and adapt and get the job done. If we expect you to fight that way in wartime, we must treat you that way in peacetime. Against an innovating, thinking adversary, we must also think and adapt and surprise. We expect that of you as airmen. That also means we're going to change the way we drive our most important research on new weapons. We've been working on a new science and technology strategy, and it's almost done. Instead of looking at where potential adversaries are heading, or coming up with the same list of technologies that we've come up with to research over the last 20 years, the Air Force Science and Technology Strategy will seek to predict where adversaries cannot easily go and ensure that the Air Force gets there first. We will focus on advancing technology solutions along 5 strategic capabilities to move the Air Force from a current force challenged by increasingly sophisticated adversaries to a force that dominates time, space, and complexity in future conflict. Global persistent awareness, resilient information sharing, rapid effective decision-making, complexity, unpredictability in mass, speed and reach of disruption and lethality, Those concepts must drive our research as they drive our way to fight. We must think and innovate faster across these capabilities to create multiple dilemmas for our adversaries. Driving innovation isn't just about stripping away bureaucracy or pushing ahead on research. About a year ago, the US Congress directed us to do a study to answer a question. What is the Air Force we need to implement the National Defense Strategy? That study is about to be turned into Congress, and I talked about it with many of you last fall. Its conclusion is clear. Our Air Force is too small for what the nation is asking us to do. We currently have 312 operational squadrons, the clenched fist of American air power. The Air Force we need has 386 operational squadrons. But it's not just more of the same. To be sure, it must be more modern. And in the last 6 months, we've accepted our first KC-46. We've awarded contracts for our newest trainer, the TX, and the replacement for the UH-1 helicopter. The B-21 bomber is on schedule. We are committed to modernizing cost-effectively our Air Force. But the way we fight the Air Force we need will also change. Everything must connect. Any sensor, any shooter. No more. Decide faster and overwhelm our adversaries before they even know what's happening. To enable all of this, we must change the way we buy equipment. We cannot win against a rapidly innovating adversary with an acquisition system from the Cold War. We must move fast to stay competitive, and we are fundamentally transforming what we buy, how we buy it, and who we buy it from. Last summer, our acquisition ninjas set a goal to strip 100 years of unnecessary schedule from Air Force program plans. So far, we have saved 78.5 years, and we are closing in on our milestone. Speed matters, and stripping out years of time matter. But it also sends a message to every program manager out there that the game has changed. And they better not come in with a standard cookie-cutter program plan to the United States Air Force, because we don't do business that way anymore. 3 contributing factors are making us faster. The first is prototyping. The Congress has given us new authorities to build things rather than just do paper studies. Let me give you an example in hypersonics. The Army, with funding from the Navy, had developed a warhead through DARPA that worked better than ours. But our booster worked better than the Navy's. So we signed an agreement among the 3 service secretaries, and we are putting the Army's warhead on our booster and testing it from the ground on ships and off a B-52 bomber. By cooperating with our sister services and building prototypes, we are building our nation's first operational boost glide hypersonic weapon 5 years earlier than anticipated. That's what cooperation and these new prototyping authorities are giving us. The second contributing factor to speed, to increase the speed, is using tailored acquisition strategies. Authority to buy equipment has been given back to the services, and we must fight to keep the bureaucracy at bay every single day. But we have empowered our workforce to structure decisions about the needs of their programs, and not just use generic, old-school, cookie-cutter acquisition processes. Lieutenant Colonel Todd Dye and his boss, Brigadier General Heath Collins, managed the F-15 Eagle Passive Active Warning Survivability System. And since we're the Air Force, we have to have an acronym. It's called EPAWS. EPAWS will replace a 30-year-old system to help Eagle drivers detect and identify air and ground threats, use countermeasures against those threats, and jam enemy radar. Last September, Lieutenant Colonel Dye looked at where they were in their program, and they finished the engineering phase, and they were ready, they thought, to go to production, but they had to wait for a massive review under the old acquisition rules. So instead, they proposed to split the review into 2 tailored reviews and get on with production. That accelerated fielding of the program by 18 months for the warfighter at no additional cost. But it's not just our big programs, the ones that are in the news or that you see on blogs talked about, where we're moving much faster. It's not just a handful of programs. It's across the board. Russell Gunter and Jennifer Hadabaugh in the Hard Target Munitions Branch down at Eglin Air Force Base are bringing a more survivable, penetrating warhead to the warfighter. It's called Blue 137. It's probably not something that many of you have even heard about. They are bringing it to the warfighter 2.5 years faster than originally scheduled. They did 3 things. They sat down and they scrubbed the Department of Defense acquisition instructions, and they eliminated any unnecessary paperwork. They got multiple companies involved in prototyping, and they pulled operational testing forward and combined it with developmental testing to sharpen the requirements up front. Brigadier General Augie Giantempo is here today, representing the Blue 137 team. Augie, you want to stand up? Where are you? There you are. Here's the point. The Air Force is no longer going to buy suits off the rack. Everybody gets tailored. The third major effort to increase speed to the warfighter is Agile software development. Just about everything now involves software. The decades-old step-by-step method of writing software is too slow, it's very expensive, it often just doesn't work at all. The Pentagon historically has been terrible at buying software. So the Air Force decided to change the game. We established the Kessel Run Experimentation Laboratory to put coders and operators together from the very beginning. So do you have anybody here who's a maintainer on the F-35? They're all out working. Nobody at all? F-35, just holler out. I can't see you through the lights. Up in the back? Okay, so I can guarantee that no Air Force maintainer will ever name their daughter Alice. The logistics maintenance system on the F-35 is known as ALICE, A-L-I-S. It is a software system so frustrating to use, maintainers said they were wasting 10 to 15 hours a week fighting with it. Our Assistant Secretary for Acquisition, Dr. Will Roper, told Kessel Run to send a team to Nellis, see if they could fix Alice and prioritize solving problems for the maintainers. The Kessel Run team stood up a program, and they call it Mad Hatter. It's made up of coders, maintainers, and to their credit, Lockheed Martin employees who came up with an agreement with the government to let us have access to the source code. They are now driving solutions. Next month, less than 75 days from the Kessel Run team landing at Nellis, the maintainers will have 2 software solutions at their fingertips. One is called Titan, that helps the crews track the status of the fleet. The other is called Kronos. Instead of manually managing the flying and maintenance schedules, Kronos does it automatically. Here's a screenshot of Kronos scheduling tail numbers for various appointments throughout the week. And if you're wondering, Kronos is the Greek god of time, because it's going to save a lot of time for our maintainers. Finally, we are engaging innovative businesses like never before. Our Space Enterprise Consortium is removing barriers to entry for small businesses and non-traditional vendors. And those companies now make up nearly 80% of the Space Enterprise Consortium's 235 partner organizations and companies. Companies like Tangram Flex that have never done business with the Air Force before. Under the Space Enterprise Consortium, Tangram Flex partnered with a traditional defense contractor, and they're doing $600,000 worth of work for us to get software to the warfighter. By removing bureaucracy, giving authority to our program managers so they're managing programs instead of managing the Pentagon, our Space and Missile Systems Center is awarding prototype contracts in 90 days, twice as fast as traditional contracting. But we thought we could do more. The United States Air Force, by law, has to spend about $660 million a year in something called Small Business Innovative Research Contracts or grants. These are intended for small businesses that are doing really innovative things to drive capability forward. But it was averaging 180 days to get a contract done for a small business innovative research grant. For an innovative small business, 180 days is forever. So the team set about figuring out whether we could do it faster, and also set aside $40 million for really small and innovative businesses. We are here in Orlando, and the Air Force, you know that sign when you go out to the theme park that says you must be this tall to ride? We're going to take down the sign for small businesses in America. We have set aside about $40 million. We have invited entrepreneurs, universities, and startups to pitch us revolutionary solutions to Air Force problems. And Air Force acquisition teams have selected candidates to come to Pitch Day in New York. One day, a one-page contract, and a swipe of government credit card, and America's most innovative businesses can be working for the United States Air Force. And we're putting aside $40 million for this effort. We've gone from 180 days to a contract to one pitch deck and a one-page contract in one day. And that is now the standard for the federal government. America's small businesses and startups are engines of innovation, and we are developing creative ways to employ their talent. You know, there are a lot of people who talk about reforming acquisition. When I was on Capitol Hill, I used to talk about it too. The Air Force is actually doing it. We are buying things faster and smarter, and setting the standard for what can be done to meet the challenges of the 21st century. Near the end of World War II, it was clear to General Arnold that America had been outpaced by our adversaries in developing new capabilities. The world was at a dawn of a new era of warfare that would bring supersonic airplanes, rockets, satellites, cruise missiles, guided munitions, and nuclear weapons. General Arnold urged his scientific advisors to explore radical new technologies. He said to them, "Divorce yourselves from the current war." Today, we again find ourselves pushed by rapidly innovating adversaries, and we face a new era of warfare with hypersonic weapons, offensive space capabilities, artificial intelligence, directed energy weapons, electronic warfare, and cyber weapons. We've been here before, and airmen like you, rose to the challenge. Thank you for all that you do to keep us on the cutting edge. God bless you all, and God bless the country that we love.